Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and today I've got the Honda Pioneer 1000 5-seater with me. Got a Rhino 2.0 axle, and unfortunately I got a bad CV on the driver hand side of this machine, so we're going to see if we can take that out and replace it today. In my particular case, the CV axle itself actually isn't bad, it's the boot. And I've looked into just replacing this boot, but I don't want to get really specialty tools, and it's a little bit pitted already, so I figured I'm just going to replace the axle. You can see that's some grease from the boot. I don't have it specifically right now for moving it around, but there is a split on this boot. Could be from a stick or anything of that nature. So just going to take this whole thing out and replace it. Going to start with a 3¼ ratchet, and I'm going to use a breaker bar for this. This is 12 spline. If I had 6 spline, that would be what is preferred, but hopefully if I go nice and slow, it won't cause any damage. Now that those are loosened, I'm going to go ahead, jack this up a little bit, and make it a lot easier to get this wheel off. Now, first and foremost, I'm not saying you should do a repair exactly like this. This just give a general idea. I don't have a jack that goes high enough or a high lift jack. So I'm going to use this floor jack with a couple pieces of wood just to get it up. And then as you can see, I've got this jack stand right next to me. Clearly that's what I'll be working with. This is just to get it up in the air and have enough height to do so I can get the wheel off. I wouldn't use this 12-point socket if I didn't have these already broken, but it'll be good here, just nice and easy. Yep, awesome. I'll set this to the side. So the next thing I'll do is I'm going to remove some of these things out of the way. First, I'm going to remove this guard. This is held on with a 10mm. If you have an extension and a socket, this will make this job a lot easier. I'm going to simply, there's 2 bolts, one up here and then one right here where my hand is, right in this area. We'll remove those bolts and this piece ought to pop out. Then I could take the brake caliper off, or the brake system itself off, lay that to the side, and then from there, castle nut, top A-arm, tie rod for the steer. And there you can see just some of the grease leaking from the boot. You can actually see just how wet it is down here compared to the rest of the machine. Well, while I'm down here, I'm going to clean some of this area up once I start assembling everything. I want to do it off camera, but just give it a light coat of spray paint, maybe a clear coat on top, just to protect it a little bit more so this doesn't wear out quite as quickly. Went ahead and jacked this assembly up a little bit, make it a little easier to work on. But now I have a 17mm socket, and we have a bolt right here. And then you have a 10 right there. Right behind that is another 17mm. And we're just going to take the brakes off this thing, or at least the brake calipers. Wow, that was on there. Yep. Good thing we had the breaker bar to get that off. Let me get one more rotation out of it just to make sure it is completely broken. There we go. All right, I can get that off the ratchet now. Now I'll go into the bottom one right here. Wow, there we go. Those are both broken. Now I can go to ratchet wrench, make this a little bit quicker, and get these bad boys off. Finally, there we go. All right, we got one more. There we go. Gonna go ahead and take a look at these brake pads as well while I'm in here. Those actually look pretty good. They got plenty of life left in them, so I'm not too concerned about that. On the back side of this brake line right there, there's a 10mm nut. Unfortunately, there's not enough room for a ratchet. This is where some ratcheting wrenches come in handy, so I'm just going to use an open face. That's all I have, but I'm just going to remove this 10mm nut that's holding the brake line in place, and that way I can move this entire brake caliper just a bit more out of the way. Makes it easier to work on the machine. This is, again, where I really want a set of ratcheting wrenches. It would make this job a lot easier and a lot quicker. So I'll drop this. There we go. Now it's just a couple of clips holding that in place. With those, there we go. Now I'm going to just set that right up here on that bracket, and that ought to hold it in a pretty good spot. So I'm going to try to get out now. Here's the ball joint right here, and there's a nut with a pin going through it. So I need to get this pin out. These can be a little bit of a pain, especially if they get a little bit of rust on them. I sprayed everything with WD-40, but even so, I'll work on getting this pin out with a couple of picks as well as some needle nose pliers, and then I'll have to see what type of socket I need for that bolt. For the last hour, a little bit over an hour, this cotter pin has been the bane of my existence. Unfortunately, I had to split it in two to get it out, and there is horrendous clearance on both sides of this, so it's near impossible to get a hammer around it, so I just had to yank, twist, and pull to finally get that out. But now I got an 11 16 inch open socket, and I'm managing to get this bolt out. Now I'm sure this is supposed to be a metric size. Unfortunately, the largest I have is 13, which is not large enough, so gonna stick with the 11 16. I need to get some more metric tools when I am available to do so, but this is working for now. We'll get that bolt off. And that's one more thing that is knocked out. Once again, I'm gonna have to get some more cotter pins, but I'll clean all of these things up. That's gonna make it a lot easier to reinstall. So now I got the nut off on this upper control arm and suspension. I wanna go ahead and get this loosened up. This is my steering arm. Not going to adjust it or anything, so I'll keep all this up here. That's pretty good. I already loosened it with a 17mm on this 18-inch breaker bar. Now I'm just going to go ahead and undo it the rest of the way with my compact. Should be pretty easy to come off. Yep. There we go. I'm not going to take that all the way off. I want to leave that on in case I do have to hit that with a hammer a little bit later. I want to make sure I'm able to get that off without damaging the threads. So a little trick there, just bring that up a little bit, kind of even with your threads. You can hit your hammer against your bolt and it'll reduce the likelihood of damaging threads and allow you to get this off in a bit. But now that the tie rod is off, I want to go ahead, put this all the way down with the jack, undo my strut, take all the pressure off that, and I can get that out of the way next. That came out pretty easily. Hopefully this will come out relatively easy as well. Shouldn't be any force on that yet. So that slid right out. We are good to go. So I finally got this tie rod end off. There's two methods you can use. You can take a rag, hold it up right here against basically the bracket that holds everything on to this wheel. And then you can use a 1 pound hammer or a large hammer and just hit against that until this nut comes loose and this bolt comes loose, and you get it out of the way. I did not do that. I used a puller. Unfortunately, that caught the boot and ended up ripping it, so I will have to repair that as well. But that puller you just set on top, and you buy these for less than 20 bucks. You then screw in this bottom screw against your bolt, and it's going to push the bolt upwards. And it did work. It just caused damage, unfortunately. Now, the upper control arm, I chose the other method in which I took a rag. You don't hit it from the bottom, evidently. You hit it from the side. I just placed that rag right there, and I just hit against this upper control arm, until it popped loose. Now, I did keep the castle nut on. And the reason I did so, I didn't want this to free fall, and I want enough rigidity between the upper and lower control arm that I'm going to be able to get this castle nut off. This is 30 millimeters. You're going to need a pretty large socket to do this. I happen to have this one from bolts actually on a fork truck. This is a small impact for this job. If this thing's over torqued from the factory, I could be in trouble, but we're going to give it a shot. I actually got pretty lucky there. It's a lot looser than I thought it'd be. Alrighty, that's about it. I got everything out of the way. The only thing I gotta do is undo my castle nut on the back of this upper control arm, and this ought to be able to pull out enough for me to finally get the CV out. Alrighty. I want to get some rope just to hold this up control arm up and out of the way. And what I want to do is I want to grab the shaft of the CV and I'm just going to do a straight pull backwards. Any luck, I'll be able to just grab this thing. Yep. And pull it right out. That was not too bad, fortunately. Got a little snap ring right there. That's what I was worried about, that getting stuck. It did not. But here we have it. That CV is out. And there you can see the boot actually, right there in that area. So, now we got this one out, we can go ahead and install the other one. Alright, so I'm just going to take this axle, line it up. Try to get the splines in. There we go. And that's seated in there. Those splines are lined up. Now I just need to take my hub assembly, put that through, take this new set. Finally. Actually, that is all the way through now, so we should be good there. So all I gotta do really is get the castle nut, loosely put it on, and then I can get everything torqued back down. That should be plenty. I've got that pushed all the way through. Take a pair of dikes and just twist these back. So I just let my upper control arm back down. You can see that nut sitting right there. Or I'm sorry, that bolt. I'm just going to push that back in place. There we go, finally got it. Like I said, just going to finger tighten that one for the time being. Just for reference, this is the upper control arm that's already been bolted back in. Now I'm putting the tie rod in after I repaired it. This is not going to be a repair that I expect to last 10 years. This is to get me through the season until I can get some more tie rod ends. Unfortunately, right now they are on back order. But I went ahead and put this bolt back in. That is an 18 millimeter, and it is a cotter pin. So I'm going to put this cotter pin back, and then we'll move to the next step. All right. That is back in place. Both of these take 17 millimeters, so I'm going to try to push this bolt through. Actually went a lot easier than I was thinking it would. Just a little small 10 millimeter bolt that holds these brackets in. So remember, when putting this brake caliper back on, it's going to go underneath the upper control arm and it's going to be facing upwards. Now I went ahead and started this bolt right here. This is 17 millimeter on the upper portion of this caliper, and that's just going to hold it in place. And now I'm just going to kind of get the shoes lined up, yep, and just push it on like that. Now that I got those lined up, I'm going to go ahead and take my other 17 millimeter. I should be able to easily go through this assembly and into the caliper once I have it lined up just right. And then these are 17 millimeter bolts, so once all of that is complete, it's just a matter of tightening them down. And for the first time in 2 or 3 days, it is back on all 4 of its wheels. Not because the repair was just that bad. That simply comes down to just only had a couple hours here, a couple hours there, had to go get a couple things, but that looks pretty good. I'm going to tighten these bolts down. In the garage tonight, I'm just going to go backwards and forwards just a little bit, make sure that CV's not making any bad noises, and then tomorrow I'll give it a proper test drive. That just about sums it up. The CV axle's in place, it's doing fine. This thing is ready for another year out on the trails, and hopefully we don't have this issue for quite some time, but I couldn't be happier with the results. Now guys, I do hope you enjoyed this video and you found it somewhat helpful if you have to change your CV axle out on your Pioneer. If you enjoyed, please make sure to share, like, and subscribe for more, and as always, thanks for watching.